So here we go. This is actually part 2 of my SCX24 hardbody tips. So during the last video, I showed the changes that I had made to the chassis, like getting rid of my shock mounts, bolting them directly onto the chassis, which gave me clearance, cleared out the bed so that my drop bed would make itself at home, which is exactly what's going on here. The front, I brought the battery up to the front, but in this video I'm going to focus more on how I mounted the body and what I did to it. A lot of people are wondering what tips and tricks can or are out there where we can mount our model bodies onto our chassis, because a lot of these are obviously not designed for SCX24, so you have to improvise. So basically what I did is I used an old method that I used from my 10 scale models, my 10 scale crawlers. And what I did is I made these little plates, these guys right here. I went to Home Depot and I bought a sheet of aluminum and basically measured the space between the chassis and the body. And I folded these, cut them and folded them, obviously filed the edges so that they're not sharp, and attached them to the chassis via these screws here, which are there originally to hold the Ford links. And so it works perfect. I honestly wasn't sure how that was going to work because it creates sort of space where I didn't know if those screws were going to hold the thread really well, and they actually do. So this is what I like to do. I added the Velcro one side to the mount here, and the other side to the chassis. And so what it allows me to do is actually I can lower the body or drop it, move it to the front, move it to the back. There's no set stance that it necessarily has to be in. I can adjust according to however I like it. If it's rubbing, I can move it to the front or whatever. And it works perfect. This has never failed me, and it works great. As far as the body in preparation, I basically just put it all together. Right, of course, I did not include any of the interior parts for reasons of weight, honestly. There's a console that goes on the roof here, which I decided not to include. There's also a mirror, because every little bit of plastic that you add to this is going to add more weight to it. And you want the least weight on your shell. In fact, this rear bumper here adds a little bit of weight, a little bit more than I would like to have had. However, for the scale of things, I added it. I actually used shoe glue. Didn't use that tester's glue because I've never really trusted it. It's too hazy, it melts the plastic, leaves fingerprints, just too many problems. So I used actual shoe glue for many reasons, because once you add things with testers, here's another reason why I didn't use testers, and you drop this, it's going to fall apart on you. And so the shoe glue is a lot more flexible. It's a lot more sturdy in my opinion. So I put everything together, including the grill. You can't really see, but there's some blob right there on both sides holding the front end to the truck. I shoe glued the hood as well. So basically just paint it, treat it as a model car, because you want it to look good. Obviously there's a reason why we went with the model cars, because they're a lot more detailed than RC grade, like toy grade bodies that are available out there. So take your time on it. Again, if you don't need to add any extra parts to it, don't do it, because you really just want the external look of it. I also painted my windows black for the same reason that I wasn't going to have an interior. Now, of course, you can add an interior all you want, but for me, I like to compete with my crawlers, and for that reason, I need to have a low center of gravity, so as little weight as I can at the top. As far as the LEDs, these are the deadbolt LEDs. And lucky for me, this front end actually came with light buckets, which I was able to drill through. I couldn't tell you what millimeter drill bit I used for these, but what I did is I grabbed the drill bit and I matched it face to face with the LED to see which size works best. I never really go by sizes, I just kind of go by feel. So once I found one that matched, I used that, and I kind of got a tight fit, which is what I wanted, because I don't want to use any glue to attach it. And also, in case in the future one of these LEDs goes out, which happens sometimes, I can pull it out with some force, but it will come out. Now, as far as the mounting, again, I use these plates here. It actually works really well for me. What I do is I spread the body out here a little bit. I like to attach one side first, and then another, and bam, there you have it. And since it does rub here a little bit, I can always just move my body to the front. Now, as far as the bed is actually separate from the cab. But what I did is I used a little piece of double-sided sticky tape. Double-sided 3M tape. And what this does, it gives me a little bit of realism, because sometimes when there's pressure on the body, the back actually sort of separates a little bit. And it gives it that realism when it is moving, because obviously trucks, the 1.1s, are not part of the cab. They're separate. So that gives me a little bit more realism there. Again, this is something that I am going to crawl. This is something that I am going to compete with if there ever are competitions in my area. So yeah, that's it. That's my build. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. The next mods I'm going to do to it are probably going to be the HR shocks, which I already bought. I am going to get these, the brass diff covers, because I want it to be able to stand firm on the rocks. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed. Again, feel free to ask any questions, and have a good one.